This week on Ferris Out Loud, we're trying to focus a little bit different. We usually have a topic that's usually talking about our favorite trends of the week with music, but this week we're completely talking about music. It's a little change. And the Nobel Prize. So October is the month for the Nobel Prize, and usually the nominees are awarded then. And a big thing with music actually is Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature on October 13th, 2016. And that just kind of proves to be a huge statement for music overall and what it has influenced in our lives in general. It's every day. Like music doesn't, it's not like it just runs through our head, but it's all around us in different things like protesting, in government, in a lot of different things. Anyone want to share their thoughts on that?
I definitely feel like music is a story, and then it can go any which way you want, and depending on your beliefs, you can persuade your audience to a certain degree, and I think that's pretty important for a lot of us because we listen to music every single day.
Yeah, I think to me, music personally is because I'm not very good with words all the time. I think music is a really good way of like getting how you feel into a song and explaining it in something that you can't explain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's like a unified language that no matter what culture, where you're from, or any belief system that you have, kind of like to touch on what Nicole said, every culture has their own version of music, and it can be heard throughout the world and interpreted in any way that they want.
I mean, it's fantastic trying to think of how all the different protests are going on, all the different tragedies that are happening, and people get unified in music. A good example I always think of is when the Haitian not earthquake, was it an earthquake? It was an earthquake. And they made a song actually. A bunch of different artists from that time came together and made a song for it, for Haiti. I mean, it's very cool what music can do to empower people. I'm very impressed by a lot of musicians take it to the next level and some don't. It just really depends on the musician as well.
I think it's just like, yeah, it's just like such a way to communicate. And I think that it's even a staple in religion. I mean,
yeah.
there used to be people that worked like centuries ago that's their way of communicating while they worked was through song.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess there's like really cool and special ways to like think of music.
Great.
And it always plays with your emotions because I know like there's certain songs that make me cry and certain songs that make me like feel motivated and work out. And then there's songs that if I'm just in the dumps, I can listen to it and it can make me like so happy and excited to just pursue the day.
Right. I mean, it's just incredible. When I'm really sad, I always hear about a really sad thing, but I listen to Had a Bad Day, and I think it's kind of funny because it's like ironic because you could have a worse day, honestly. And really, music can just turn someone around just like that. But
Bad Day is like to me so corny that like you're listening to it, like you can't listen to it if you're actually having a bad day.
You really can't. I mean, it's just weird because a lot of influential artists like Michael Jackson as a great example, he's shown so much when he was alive. I mean, obviously his music even carries on to today. You can look at, well, I mean, he goes all the way from Thriller to Billie Jean to et cetera, et cetera. He's just a very influential man. Any comments on Michael, guys?
Michael's iconic. like he was alive. He did that. Yeah, I have a friend that is obsessed with Michael Jackson, and like so I've learned a lot about him through what I've seen from them. And it turns out like he has a lot to say, and he has a very interesting opinion. And if you listen to it more than that, not just through his music, but also what he has to say, it's pretty fascinating.
And he has such a wide variety of fans that any point that he tries to share, that it can affect them in a different way, and it can just be spread throughout everywhere. Like you can just share so much of your emotions through it.
I mean, it's incredible, honestly, just looking at Michael and what he did, like I said before. Another one is John Lennon. I mean, not our generation exactly, but still influential through to this point where it bleeded through to our generation. I mean, you guys have any thoughts on John?
Just a very peaceful person. I stand a lot behind of what he kind of stood for, kind of just like showed love and everything like that. And kind of like how you were saying, for that influential person to carry on generation after generation after generation, he has to be somewhat of an incredible person.
I thought Yoko Ono was iconic, and so if he's like, you know, like associated with her in any way, then yeah, he's cool too, I guess. No, he like, I mean, I like went through a Beatles phase when I was a teenager because I was like, oh, this is really what music is supposed to be, even though like music now can still be exactly like its intent. But yeah, so I was digging the Beatles a lot, and so I liked John. I mean, I'm more of a George kind of guy, but yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible. Like you said, the Beatles have, well, John Lennon alone has done so much, and I don't know, growing up with the parents that I had, I was very in touch with music in general, and I have to have my own roots, but like going back to what your parents sometimes show, it can be really cool just listening to their stuff in their generation. We had this giant just album of CDs basically in our basement, and it was crazy because you could just pick out a CD, listen to a different generation, probably all the way to the 40s actually, with old recordings from it, because technology is great nowadays when you can just make prints like that.
And I feel like with listening to the music with your parents brings back memories for them, because I know experiences that I've had, and a certain song was playing in the background, it would bring back that memory every single time I hear that song.
Can't complain. Another iconic idol that a lot of people look for in music is Elton John. I mean, I love Elton. He has influenced myself a lot because, again, going back to the parent thing, my parents listened to a lot of Elton John, and he was a trendsetter. His fashion was one thing, but his music was another. People can say that it was quirky, it was different, but I mean, he is amazing. I don't know how else to put it. Rocket Man, Tiny Dancer, can go down the list. Just every song's incredible by him. I don't know, guys, any thoughts?
I mean, to me, Elton John is iconic because he, as an LGBT individual, was able to make people that didn't necessarily understand him like him.
Yes.
And so what's cool about that is that people get into that more and they start understanding the culture a little bit more, and like individuals that are LGBT. So that's why I think that Elton John is really cool.
And he was willing to express it in his own way.
Yeah.
And I feel like when he was big, it wasn't really allowed, basically, and it was kind of like shock to everybody else that he was expressing his emotions like that in that way.
And the same goes for Freddie Mercury. Like,
Yeah.
it was like people were so like, they were such a fan that when like you hear things about them, like, and it was not as acceptable as at the time, like people were like, wow, like these are individuals, that doesn't change them, and they're still really loved. And so that was always inspiring to me as someone growing up and like hearing people like Queen and Elton John.
I mean, it's just incredible because if you look at a prime example, I always think of is Elton John and Eminem. Honestly, I know everyone kind of like cringes sometimes at that combination, but it was a thing. And Eminem, back in the day, if people don't know, he was accused of saying slurs against LGBT community overall, and it was kind of bad. But then actually, when he almost died from prescription overdose, Elton John was there actually by his side, which is an incredible story. And you think, why help a man that was saying these slurs all the time? And Elton John was just one of those souls that touched this earth, and you would not believe how many people he influenced, not only with his music, but what he did overall. It's incredible. I mean, and I think that just, him especially, just touches how my personal belief in music has grown so much overall, because you can do so much more than music as a whole instead of just, some music nowadays where it doesn't have any meaning. And some does, but it's just playing devil's advocate a little bit with it. I mean, you guys have your own personal experiences that you didn't share with us?
I think, to me, music, although it might seem like, oh, this isn't what music's supposed to be, like I kind of said earlier, is that, like, music is supposed to change, and it's supposed to go through a lot of, like, developments, because as, like, we've already figured out, you can only use the same amount of notes and chords as many times and recycle that idea. So as people want to create new ideas or more original ideas, like, things are going to sound different. And although we might be more interested in what happened in the past, like there's still a lot of cool stuff to like see in the future.